just wanted to talk about a few housekeeping issues that will be all useful to make this dialogue a big success for us. The first one is that this dialogue is being streamed live. It's live on the Global Resilience Partnership website, and it is also being recorded. The full recording of the dialogue will be made available on the Global Resilience Partnership website shortly after the dialogue. The dialogue is also closed captioned, enabled to help everyone follow the discussions as people talk. We will run a series of targeted Mentimeter questions during the whole discussion and the panels to gather information and your thoughts from all of you, and these will form part of the outcome document that shall be developed at the end of the series. Before we go into our discussions today, would like to know a little bit about who is joining us, where you're joining us from, and you will see on your screen right now a question asking you what country you're joining this dialogue from, and you can answer this by going to menti.com and use the code that's showing on the screen. You can also go directly to this site by clicking on the link that's been shared to you in the chat. So I'll give it a few minutes just to see who and where you're joining from. Please just go to menti.com and use the code that's before you and tell us where you're from. I can see answers coming in. We've got people joining us from India, from Sweden, from Tunisia, the USA, the UK. So there's a lot of good evenings, probably good mornings, and yes, and the list keeps growing. This is fantastic. This is truly part of a global dialogue that we're talking about. We also have South Africa, Botswana, Cote d'Ivoire, Uganda. This is fantastic. We even have some people from Chile. That's fantastic. So I think Gonzalo will be pretty happy that Chile is well represented here. Keep those answers coming in. Oh, Rwanda, East Africa, excellent. Absolutely brilliant. Keep the answers coming in. We'd also want to know what organization you're representing, whether you're coming from a civil society organization, private sector, research, etc. Ooh, I think civil society organization is topping the screens. Aha, we have intergovernmental organizations. I think they've taken over. So keep those answers coming in. Would like to know a little bit about you, your profile, where you're joining us from, etc. So we'll run this Mentimeter in the background as we proceed with our discussion. So most of the people coming in are from government. So without further ado, I would like to hand over this, the microphone or the chair, the screen over to the opening remarks. And I have the pleasure of introducing to the dialogue the Vice President in AGRA for Program Implementation and Delivery, who is representing Dr. Kalibata this afternoon. Agi Asimwe Konde is the Vice President who is in charge of programs across 12 countries in AGRA, and I'm honored to be the person to ask her to give the opening remarks. Agi, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hassan. I'm delighted to be here. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, friends and colleagues. I am delighted to recognize the presence of the climate change high-level champions, Gonzalo Munez and Niger Toppings, and the representative of the African Development Bank President. I am representing Madame Agnes Kalibata, as introduced, and so I will be reading my opening remarks. So distinguished colleagues and delegates, it is an honor to be here with you at the first Africa Resilience Dialogue. Before I start, I wish to recognize all the partner organizations for the hard work that you have put into making this event possible. This does speak to the need to really listen to other people's voices and also to the inclusion agenda that we all aspire for. As you know, we are all advocates for stronger and more practical partnerships in our various institutions. And I think Menti has really validated that we are all coming from very diverse institutions. And this is a visible demonstration on what great partners can achieve when we all come together to solve for a common development challenge. Today's food systems are not fully responsive to the realities of what we need as a people. They are instead triggering health challenges as evidenced in the increasing food-related disease burdens around the world. As you all know, we've got over 2 billion people and counting that are obese. But we also have over $1 trillion worth of food that is wasted every year, yet we remain with over millions of people that still go to bed hungry every day. So the food systems have an impact on the climate, and they are responsible, partly responsible, for a significant amount of emissions that are causing the climate change that we see today. These contradictory realities are partly our fault as a people. And at this stage of human development, we all know that we have the knowledge, the technology, the networks, the capabilities to allow us to do a lot of things differently and better. But the question probably is, why are we not doing it? This is an untenable situation. And I'm glad that meetings like this are now happening because we need to mobilize ourselves differently. And I emphasize the word differently, in order to deploy our capabilities and resources in a more creative manner that will make our food systems work for both people and planet. In Africa, as we all know, agriculture remains a very vital role to play in food security, development, and natural resource management. Yet it remains one of the most vulnerable sectors to the effects of climate change. And ultimately, as we all know, this will continue to impact the sector's productivity. And later on, of course, it will create significantly to the food insecurity that we are already seeing. There is therefore an urgent need for a fundamental rethink to the way in which we design, implement, and collaborate around agriculture implementation programs. And I do believe that out of such meetings, we should be able to define a way in which we can do all of this differently. Today's dialogue provides one such opportunity and probably starts one of the many meetings and many sessions that we will need, that we must prioritize adaptation in Africa to ensure that our food systems are able to cope with the change in the climate and environmental resources. Science tells us and continues to tell us that adaptation measures will also have mitigation benefits. It is a win-win, and why then are we not riding that tide? We must be inclusive in our approaches to ensure we also cater for the needs of the excluded and marginalized communities, whether it is women, youth, small and big businesses, but we all must be able to come together to ensure that we've got a transition that is sustainable and that we will be proud of handing over to the next generations and generations to come. We must equally be humble enough to accept that even though we know a lot, much more needs to be learned and unlearned. And we must challenge ourselves to ask more and ask different questions and approaches so that we seek to gain more experiences that will develop our capabilities or harness our capabilities to build agriculture's adaptation and resilience in a more significant yet mutually inclusive manner. This dialogue, I believe, is one of these such initiatives that will propel us to the goals of prosperity and a healthy planet that we all seek for ourselves and for our children. Next year's Food Systems Summit is a significant opportunity for us to mobilize for developing more just food systems that provide for this. The summit will be seeking, among others, to realize practical yet appropriate and localized action-based agreements. These could be in ensuring safe and nutritious foods for all, shifting to sustainable consumption patterns, boosting nature-positive production at sufficient levels, advancing equitable livelihoods and value distribution, building resilience to vulnerabilities, shocks, and stresses. Inclusiveness to ensure the voices of all are heard, including those of experts such as yourselves, farmers, indigenous people, and academics. We in Africa recognize that agricultural adaptation is already occurring autonomously at the local level, but probably we are not documenting that enough, we're not sharing that enough. But farmers are adjusting because they are in the business of farming and they care. So they are adjusting their planting systems to climate change. We need to augment this with planned adaptation at the sectoral and national levels and introduce policies that address food insecurity, vulnerabilities, and agriculture research, extension, communication to realize the sustained transformation that we seek. This dialogue, therefore, should seek to build on all these ongoing efforts to ensure we bring on board all the relevant parties. No one should be left behind, to get to a position where our farmers and the environment benefit from these initiatives. We have already alluded to the fact that agriculture's potential is enormous, and there's no doubt about that. But that equally, climate change continues to take away the gains that we have. So I do strongly believe that with a harnessed, coordinated, multilateral way, we will find solutions that are applicable in this situation. This is such one opportunity for us to raise our ambitions and achieve that at a global stage. Our high-level champions can rally behind our priorities through the multilateral processes. So in conclusion, we must overcome the challenges that hinder mobilization of resources. I believe we can mobilize the resources we need from within Africa and from outside of Africa. So allow me to say that if we have the right technologies and we mobilize the right resources, our ability to harness this opportunity will be a must-do. I now would like to wish you all successful deliberations and look forward to the big, hairy, and audacious outcomes that will come out of these deliberations. Thank you very much. Asante sana, mwebare mononga. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Agi, for your opening remarks. Very well spoken and points well taken. I'll quickly hand over to Kevin Kariuki, who is representing the Africa Development Bank President. Kevin is the Vice President for Power, Energy, Climate, and Green Growth. So please, over to you, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Asan. Ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. On behalf of my bank president, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, I wish to express the bank's gratitude for the invitation to participate in this event. The topic of the dialogue is dear to him, and he would have liked to be present, but for prior conflicting commitments. Climate change is a threat multiplier, especially in Africa, because it exacerbates existing development challenges that affect our countries today. In the last 5 years, it is estimated that about 180 million people across Africa have been affected by extreme weather events, with losses and damages estimated at over $22 billion. Tropical cyclones Idai and Kenneth were the deadliest and costliest storms to hit Africa's southern hemisphere, causing over 1,000 deaths and more than $2 billion worth of damages in 2019. The Greater Horn of Africa also recently experienced the worst locust invasion in decades and continues to be under risk of a new wave of invasion, thereby continuing to threaten livelihoods and food security in the region. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic caught everybody unaware and has aggravated Africa's vulnerabilities, reversing 10 to 20 years of hard-earned development gains. We need to build resilience in the face of this and future pandemics. Hopefully, there would be no future pandemics. But having said that, COVID-19 should not be a reason to renege on global climate commitments, including allocating 100 billion per annum for the developing countries by 2020. Instead, tackling the COVID-19 pandemic should present an opportunity to put forward audacious measures that will enable African countries to bounce back better. It is for this reason that the African Development Bank timeously established a 10 billion COVID-19 rapid response facility, which is supporting African governments and businesses to mitigate the social and economic impacts and support a greener economic recovery. Meanwhile, the bank continues to take giant steps to combat climate change on the continent. This has been evidenced by the bank's increase in climate financing from 9% in 2016 to 35% in 2019, an increase of almost 400%. Further, we were on track to achieve the 40% 2020 target until the emergence of the COVID-19, which necessitated repurposing of funding. We further commit to mobilize 25 billion in climate finance by 2025. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt that building climate resilience is at the heart of Africa's development. The bank has surpassed the global average of investments in adaptation. To date, 56% of our climate finance resources are allocated to adaptation, which compares very favorably to the 10% global average. The bank emphasizes resilience building for three very good reasons. First, the economic cost of climate vulnerability in Africa is already very high. Secondly, adaptation is Africa's priority vis-a-vis climate change. And third, investing in climate resilience is smart economics, as adaptation investments consistently deliver high returns. Our commitment to and leadership on adaptation justifies our recent selection to host the African Region Office of the Global Center on Adaptation, GCA Africa. The partnership with GCA Africa will help magnify Africa's voice in the global community, as well as showcase the continent's leading interventions on climate change, adaptation, and resilience. Through this resilience with GCA, through this partnership with GCA, the bank will ensure coordination of Africa's continental initiatives on adaptation with global programs, with a view to delivering accelerated adaptation action across the continent that can mobilize the needed financial resources at scale. In particular, the African Development Bank is seizing every opportunity to build resilience in critical geographies such as the Sahel. Here, our investments are reversing land degradation, energizing development, and creating green jobs through initiatives such as the proposed 20 billion Desert to Power program, which targets to build up to 10 gigawatts of solar generation capacity and provide clean electricity and energy security to up to 250 million people across the 11 Sahel countries. As you would appreciate, one of the most vulnerable sectors to climate change in Africa is agriculture. It is for this reason that we launched the Food Africa Strategy 2016 to 2025 as our main vehicle to drive agricultural transformation in Africa, ensure food security in Africa, and make the continent a net exporter of food. Accordingly, allow me to single out two key programs integral to this strategy and highlighting the potential impact of the bank's intervention. First is the 2.7 billion Africa Climate Smart Agriculture Program. This program has enhanced the adaptive capacity of 5 million vulnerable farmers. Second is the Technologies for Africa Agriculture Transformation, what we call the TAD program, that has already provided up to about 141 million people with access to improved agricultural technologies for Africa security. My colleague, Dr. Martin Fregen, will expound on TAD during the second panel session. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the bank is moving from disaster response to adaptation for a climate resilient future. The Africa Disaster Risks Financing Program, established in collaboration with the Africa Risk Capacity of the African Union, is providing capacity building on risk profiling and modeling, contingency planning, and in delivering early warning systems. It is also supporting the payment of insurance premiums against climate disasters. Last, but by no means least, Africa's ability to address climate threats is severely constrained by limited infrastructure for climate and severe weather observation and reliable climate information. Consequently, through the Climate Dev Africa Special Fund, the bank has invested more than $60 million in weather observation infrastructure, delivering services for timely and reliable weather and climate forecasts critical to addressing extreme weather risks in 25 countries in Africa. I am convinced that this dialogue will generate useful recommendations that will place resilience building and its financing at the center of COP26 in Glasgow and post-2020 global biodiversity framework, helping Africans to build back better. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for those words and those points that you raised about the challenges that Africa faces. As always, we are always running behind time in dialogues such as this. So I'll hand over quickly to our high-level champions. I will hand over to Gonzalo to give us a very brief opening and setting the scene remarks before we go into our panel. So over to you, Gonzalo.
Thanks so much, Hassan, and of course, greetings to this third of the 6 regional resilience dialogues that we as climate champions are very strongly supporting. It's an honor, and I'm very proud of participating, as this is the first dialogue that works for both of the not only the time zones but our calendar. So it's being the first one for me. It's great to be here with my dear friend Nigel, participating and sending the right message. Right, we are absolutely committed to the dialogues and the topics, and we are very happy to participate. Of course, thanks to AGRA, the African Development Bank, and all other organizations. There were so many for convening these dialogues, and all the organizations who have supported it, to GRP and Climate Resilient Network and MPGCA for setting up the regional dialogues. As Aji mentioned while reading Agnes' words, it's great to listen how important it is to listen to other people's voices. And for me, is one thing that touches me immediately is that there are so many voices that are so many times feeding improperly, either obese or going to bed hungry every night. That is a very concrete expression of
Okay, we seem to have lost Gonzalo for a few seconds. Give him a few seconds, maybe he'll come back, or just move straight to Nigel. Nigel, please, if you can give some concluding remarks to what Gonzalo started. Nigel, you are on mute.
Yes. Well, Hassan, thank you. It's so wonderful to join you. Thank you also, Aggie and Kevin, for the wonderful introduction and the framing in the context of the Food Systems Summit next year, the work of AGRA and the ADB. First thing I'm sorry, Gonzalo, this is the beauty of working virtually, is that I get to see you all. The challenges that sometimes we have difficulties like Gonzalo's having right now. I know he'll join us in a minute. First of all, I want to say I'm really thrilled to be meeting you all. You know, I was really looking forward this year to coming to the Regional Climate Action Week in Africa once, and then coming again for the Commonwealth Heads of Governments meeting. So I was hoping to have 2 weeks in Africa this year. I've had 0. So it's really a thrill to get to meet you, and just hearing from the earlier remarks already is really important. You know, I think Gonzalo and I are really clear that we need to think big to achieve transformation to healthier diets and sustainable food systems in Africa and across the world. We know that that means a systemic focus on regenerative agriculture, which at its core cares for and protects the soil in natural and low chemical ways. We know that soil health goes hand in hand with soil carbon, and there's a huge opportunity to take carbon out of the atmosphere, and that nature-based solutions in regenerative agriculture can contribute to 30% of the emissions reductions we need. We also understand the connection between agriculture and food, and the regenerative agriculture needs to focus on how to be resilient to flooding and drought. And I think at the heart of this is a human resilience question of securing profitable climate resilient livelihoods for smallholders in the long term, that we understand could avert up to 11 million deaths per annum and lift 820 million people from undernourishment, many of them living in Africa. And of course, as Kevin said, this is investment in resilience makes sense economically. This is also an issue of avoiding $4.5 trillion per annum of the costs of the double burden of hunger and obesity. So we're really keen to learn. I want to say, you know, my background is in manufacturing and most of my and climate change, and most of my work has been on mitigation and on with business and in the global north. So I'm really in learning mode. I'm not an expert. I did have the good fortune 3 years ago to spend a week in South Africa and Zambia looking at food systems, including spending a day and a night in the home of a smallholder farmer in eastern Zambia. So I have a small window into some of the challenges and opportunities, but I'm really approaching this in a spirit of humility, knowing that I know very little, knowing that I'm going to learn a lot in the rest of the dialogue. Also, Gonzalo and I are very conscious that COP27 will be held in Africa. We're very keen to start building more relationships and more bridges, and even to put a support team for the champions work in Africa in the next 12 months, so that when an African champion is appointed at or soon after COP26, they already have an infrastructure which they can plug into. So really looking forward to learning. And final thing I'd say is Gonzalo and I, we've launched a Race to Zero, which is really a mitigation focused campaign, which has great momentum. And we're really keen to launch a resilience campaign before the end of the year. So we promise to use what we learn from this dialogue and the other regional dialogues to advance ambitious actions towards a net zero world, which is full of resilient people, resilient economies, and resilient ecosystems. So with that, I hand back to you, Sam, and look forward to the panels. Oh, Gonzalo's back.
Yes, I'm back. So if I just finish my words, Hassan, just not to take more time, I'm sorry, the connection is part of building resilience, right? Nowadays is an element that is showing how much of this we need to build. And I was referring mostly to what Kevin mentioned in terms of there are so many possibilities of developing green jobs, stop soil degradation, developing the possibilities of solar energy, better cities. We really love to hear about the African Smart Agriculture Program, the agriculture transformation, all of what you're taking into consideration around risk profiling, I think is a critical part of what we're doing with Nigel. Also understanding those climate disasters opportunities in terms of understanding how much and how better we have to learn on risk management and detection. As Nigel said, we as both champions are looking to build a strong link with African partners and looking forward not just to COP26, but to COP27, just like Nigel mentioned. I would like to especially congratulate also Akin for his re-election as president of the AFDB. We're looking forward to working in partnership with Akin, Agnes, and others as they define next steps to build resilience and support green growth on the continent. In terms of what do we do as high-level champions, we are appointed by our governments, Chile and UK, and have a mandate for UNFCCC partners to champion climate action by non-party stakeholders. In plain English, businesses, civil society, banks, cities, communities, young people. This gives us great freedom and in order to mobilize our job to deliver more action and not to negotiate. Our part here is to mobilize that capacity from non-state actors. So it's all related to climate action. We think it is essential to take action on resilience and mitigation. It is not either or, it's one or the other, it's both. And it's very clear that when looking at food and agriculture, you need to position both very concretely. And in that sense, COVID has demonstrated what happens when we don't anticipate and prepare for risks. We must learn from this, and we have to learn how to build resilience to climate change impacts. Thinking about the impacts of climate change, as I said, there's so many elements that are related to people. It is absolutely unacceptable to let the prediction of 100 million more people being pushed into extreme poverty from climate change by 2030 becoming true. That is absolutely unacceptable. It's a moral duty for the world to really commit to solving and anticipating. It's simply unacceptable, not just fair, not just unfair. We need to act now and drive ambition. This also means fixing this broken food system and agriculture system, something very close to my heart as a farmer. As Agnes said, we farmers do care. We as champions care. We are here to collaborate. We're here to build resilience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our high-level champions. Thank you very much to our opening panel. Nigel, just to mention that I am actually from Zambia and the eastern part of Zambia. So I really hope that you stayed in my little window if you were in the eastern part of Zambia. We are behind time, and I will go straight to hand over to the moderator of the next panel, next session. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce Wanjira Maathai, the Vice President and Regional Director for Africa at the World Resources Institute. She has formerly served as co-chair of the WRI Global Restoration Council and a senior advisor to the Global Restoration Initiative. She is currently the chair of the Wangari Maathai Foundation and also the former chair of the Green Belt Movement. Wangari Maathai, over to you. Karibu.
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you very much, everybody. And I hope you can all hear me. It's usually great. I see thumbs up. It's a real pleasure. Delighted to be part of this discourse on building, bouncing back better, and a greener Africa, and seizing transformation opportunities for a more resilient future. Thank you so much to the opening speakers, Gonzalo and Nigel, and all of you for framing this dialogue so well. This event could not be more timely. What COVID has taught us and exposed us to just the fragility of our food systems, leading to limited availability and access to nutritious food. Those statistics always so startling. Climate change makes this even worse, making food insecurity deeper. And it's frightening to know that 50% of global food calories actually come from small-scale farmers, yet they are some of the most vulnerable in the world. That's how vulnerable our food systems are. And so transforming them must be one of the key pillars of our work going forward, certainly our adaptation agenda. There's an opportunity to mobilize actors crucial climate resilience action at local and national level. And I'm really glad that the Global Commission for Adaptation's report also spells out this need and the need to act urgently. And nowhere is this more pertinent than in this sector of agriculture, especially given the food production, the connection of food production to climate. And so that's also why I'm delighted to be moderating this panel, where we'll talk a little bit more about those front lines of climate change and how we can build resilience for food and agricultural systems in Africa. We will start off, as we love these Mentimeter questions, with a Mentimeter question. And we're going to ask this question. You can see it on your screens. What are the barriers and challenges in building resilience in food and agricultural systems in Africa from your work? Please go. We ask you to log on, as you did in the beginning, and put in the code that you see in the chat box. This question will continue to run in the background, so please continue to respond to it as you join us. And we encourage members of the audience to participate, give your input, and these answers will be analyzed and we'll get a sense of what you are thinking. Over to the panel from the front line, building resilience in food and agricultural systems in Africa. Let's get started by hearing from our panelists. We have a delightful lineup. Gordon Kote Nikoi, we have Nishera Wanjiro Kimani, Paswell Marenya, and Celia Riviero. And they will be joining us in this discussion. I want to turn to you, Gordon, first. You are a business development manager from eSoko, digital farming service that today connects over 1 million farmers. I would like to ask, I hear an echo. If you can mute if you're not speaking, that would be great. 1 million farmers to essential services, weather forecasts, agronomic advice, market linkages. You also worked for over 20 years with smallholder farmers, both in crops and livestock value chains. And I love that you yourself are a farmer. Gordon, tell us briefly how digital farming advisory services supports decision-making in the work that you do. Unmute if you've started, not yet.
Yeah. I hope you can hear me. Yeah, and
yes.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone listening to me now, right now. Yes, digital farmer advisory services supports farmer decision making in so many ways. But let me quickly give one or two for that. The first thing is the timing of the information that you are giving to the farmer. With the digital services, the timing is right. An example, getting an information about climate or weather information or rainfall information to a smallholder farmer as early as 6 a.m. For that farmer to know that at 11 a.m. it's going to rain, there's going to be a heavy downpour, enables that farmer to plan, not to even attempt walking onto the farm. Another aspect is when they are harvesting. You know, when a farmer is harvesting, it needs to know exactly when is he to harvest, when is he to dry, or when is he to go and sell. And this weather information plays a vital role in that decision making. Another activity is the agronomic practices on the farm, planting, fertilizer application, weeding. By knowing the rainfall data, the rainfall pattern, when is it going to rain, when is it not going to rain, is able to plant very well to produce the best or put the best into the soil and get the best. One basic thing that we do through the digital farmer service is to make sure that before the season begins, we're able to give the farmer the volume of water that will come down that season and what variety of crops he can produce that season. So at the beginning of the season, in the middle of the season, and at the end part of the season, the farm makes decision of what to do, what not to do, how to do it, and then when to do it.
Thank you very much, Gordon. That is amazing. Timing of information, data transparency and predictability, all really important pieces. I want to turn to you, Naisera, and ask about your work, because as a community organizer, you've been championing gender and children's rights, human rights in general, and engaging with various sectors across academia, government, and others. Tell us how youth are getting engaged and driving action to build resilience in the food sector, particularly in informal settlements.
Thank you so much, Wanjira. And my name is Nisera. And a mention of the word agriculture in urban setup, it always brings about the question of the space. However, this is now changing. Youth are becoming more innovative, whereby they are maximizing on limited spaces to conduct urban farming. And this includes the rehabilitation of dump sites, now currently utilized to conduct the urban farming. And the methods used in this urban farming, they are like the spiral gardening, we have the sack gardening, and the use of the waste plastic, because by the way, I live in the the use of now the plastic, and additionally through the safe and inclusive cities, we've managed to organize the young people, and these young people are now venturing into vegetable farming, and procuring seeds and utilized spaces, and the agriculture proceeds that they are getting, they are distributing to the vulnerable families. Especially this has been happening, especially this the corona period, and let me say this: urban farming is not equal to smart farming. We should embrace smart farming so as we can achieve the UN urban agenda of the smart cities. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Naisera. That really interesting. The innovations and the circularity of how youth are innovating in informal settlements and across the board, use of small spaces, really exciting to hear. I'll come back to pursue some of that. I want to turn to Paswell, a senior scientist at CIMIT. You are an agricultural economist and have been teaching and working in this research for 13 years. You've obviously seen a lot, and we want to hear from you, based on your experience working in this, what specific interventions do you see having the most promise in our efforts to build resilience to shocks like we're seeing now?
Yes, thank you, Wanjira, for the kind introduction. Now, I would love to bring to the attention of the attendants two critical institutions in what I'm going to describe. Number one, CIMIT, the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center, which I work for, and part of the CGIS system that has for more than a decade now ramped up efforts at developing maize and wheat varieties that respond to new climate challenges. And there are many varieties now that are being promoted to gain more market share. Now, these varieties are stress tolerant to droughts, weeds, pests, low soil nutrients. The point there is that if these varieties are scaled and replace classical varieties, legacy varieties that do not have these stress-tolerant capacities, these represent important advancements in enabling farmers, small farmers, even large farmers in Africa to face the new climate realities around drought, around weeds and pest pressures, around soil nutrient depletion, and around the need to reduce greenhouse gas mitigation from fertilizers and what have you. That's number one. Number two, the Feed the Future Innovation Lab for Markets, Risk and Resilience, hosted at the University of California, Davis, emerges from many years of work developing and testing financial and market innovations that take the most promising agricultural technologies, most prominently agricultural insurance, to enable farmers deal with unmitigated and the need for risk transfer. Now, one specific example is a 5-year project that we've run between 2015 and 2019, where we tested and piloted the combination of drought-tolerant hybrid maize and indexed insurance. So underlying that, combining, bundling, an agronomic technology inherent in the biological insurance of drought-tolerant maize and the financial insurance, if you like, that comes as a result of the weather index insurance. So that bundling is a core philosophy of this project and of our current thinking, both at Summit and other CGIAR organizations, and in the Feed the Future Innovation Lab for Markets and Resilience. And so what
Thank you, Paswal. Paswal, I want to come back to the insurance and bundling because it's part of a series of questions I want to come back to you about. So hold that thought as we hear from Celia, because Celia, I wanted to bring in Celia now and then come back to that thought. So hold it, Paswal. Celia, you own and manage your own company, which you've done since 2016, increasing food security and household income with smallholder farmers. And you've worked with them to build resilient systems, so you know what that takes. Could you tell us from your experience in Mozambique, how companies like yours work with smallholder farmers to build that resilience to extreme shocks, like we saw happen with Cyclone Idai?
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. As you know, it's a very difficult work with the affected communities this time to prioritize climate change without also addressing their very real food security and financial needs. In fact, climate change initiatives in the context needs to do both. The initiatives must incorporate technical assistance, training and education. It can exchange of knowledge that incorporates both climate change business practices. The other challenge is to ensure that the small farmer is investing and protecting their investment when these extreme events come. So one of the things we are working is to convince insurance company to start introduce insurance, agriculture insurance that ensure all those communities, those small farmers, to receive back their investment if occur in extreme events, either droughts or rainfall, or if some pesticides come a lot. So my English is not good, but I'm trying to tell you that a few days ago, I'm part of moss grow in Mozambique, and we hear experience from Brazilian, and the former minister say that it's a challenge of supplying food, preserving natural resource. And he mentioned that insurance is a tool that will empower farmers. So this is our challenge in Mozambique.
Thank you, Celia. The work that Celia is talking about requires that a market be possible. And Gordon, I want to come back to you and ask a question on market access. It is an issue, as you know, and how do you see the role of the private sector in incentivizing climate smart and resilient agricultural practices? Because this is key if we're going to make the entire value chain work for farmers.
Thank you very much. Yes, there's a vast opportunity over there for the private sector. It's mainly the way you place your company or yourself And one thing about it all is about how you partner each other and come up with appropriate revenue sharing. If you are able to do that, it is always easy and very, very sustainable. Isoko per se have been able to partner all the telecommunication operators in Ghana, and we are working successfully because everything is clear, everything is open to you. We all know what is coming in, what is not coming in, and there's a free and fair revenue sharing among the partners. One thing too is we can't do everything. I don't see a private partner trying to do everything. If you want to do everything, you will not be able to do it. So just specialize yourself and do 1, 2 out of the lot and leave the others for the other private people to come in. And let's see ourselves as brothers and sisters in the same field, but not as competitors. If we see our competitors and we are competing against each other, we will not move the industry forward.
Thank you, Gordon. Naisera, is this a challenge you see as well? Because what are the top two challenges that you see that need to be addressed for more engagement, particularly from youth? Is Naisera there with us? Is she on mute?
Yeah, sure. So when it comes to the urban setup, I want to say that there's no one that is ready to introduce the young people to modern technology when it comes to agriculture. And I'm talking about the automated greenhouse, the hydroponic farming. And this now is now making the youth to just do agriculture for fun. They're not doing it, they're just doing it for their own consumption, not because of to make money. And then the other challenge is the lack of space. The lack of space in the informal settlement is a big issue, and with technology now, we can now be able to address the space issue. Lack of space and sensitization. That is the two main challenges that I can say that we are facing in the informal settlement. Me as a person who is dealing with these young people who are in agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you, Naisera. And Paswell, if we come to you, you've heard some of the challenges and you're very busy on the research side. What innovations are there? What is some of the experience in the research, in the investments that we need to make it all work?
Yes, so I was talking to you, I was telling you about the idea of bundling an insurance. It's not traditional insurance, this is weather index insurance, parametric insurance in some language, and agronomic insurance. Now, the idea there is to make sure that we can get the synergies and complementarities from those two angles, because no one product, no one idea can actually help farmers deal with the multiple challenges that I was talking about. So you need that bundling. If you can get the bundling right, and you can move a bundled product from concept to a commercializable, market-ready product, that would be great. And so that's the kind of work we're doing. Now, the challenge in terms of the investments needed to go beyond proof of concept to adaptation or adapting the product, in this case, a drought-tolerant maize combined with weather index insurance. What is needed is basically investments in the research to market value chain. Because what I've seen is that there's a lot of research upstream in the proof of concept, but then somewhere downstream, the investments begin to taper off and everybody wants a ready product without having invested in the downstream piloting and testing. And so if I still have 30 seconds, I will say that in our project, we had a coalition of a CG Center research organization involving crop breeders, seed systems people, agricultural economists from UC Davis, seed company executives on the ground, government extension, and farmers, at least, and insurance companies, I'm forgetting. So at least 6 entities working together. Now that is how you get to test the product in terms of its applicability downstream. but it requires investment. So just as you need proof of concept research investment, you also need sort of adaptation investment and scaling investment.
Thank you, Paswell. Celia, I want to ask you about success stories. If all of these pieces are in place and Paswell gets his way and the bundling happens, how does it work on the ground, Celia? Do you see these, have you seen some of these success stories already? Can you share some with us? You're on mute, Celia. There you go.
Yes, okay. So yes, of course, we have a lot of opportunity, work with the small communities, and we have some success story in our communities. So we create a model that we involve some local farmers become leaders and become agents to provide inputs to the communities and provide service of aggregation in the community. So those farmers see the approximation of those services as a benefit for the farmers. So they have more adaptation. They adapt more because they have all the services near to them, and they can start work hard and preserve, see the benefits, see more incomes, and they can start preserve protect the environment. Yeah. So those are few things that takes long time because you need to invest a lot on training and knowledge, pass them knowledge, and convince them that agriculture is a business and they can do and they can get from agriculture more incomes if they protect and if they use best practices.
Thank you, Celia. Really interesting. I want to actually go back to Naisera and ask you about the role of government and in the international community. Have you any experience, and what are the opportunities for other partners to come in and help better equip to build resilience in informal settlements?
Wow, a good question. So I must say that we are talking about the large-scale farmers and the subsistence farming. And my first point is about the policies. And if we have better policies that support the agriculture services towards the value addition of agriculture produce, that will be super good, not just for the large-scale farmers, but for us in the informal settlements. Point number 2 is moving agriculture to from subsistence farming to commercial farming, so as farmers can make money from agriculture. Remember, I spoke about the hydroponic farming and the automated greenhouses. Number 3 is about investing in technology and innovation. And point number 4, let's embrace all genders, because most of the time, women are just used as the end users. We are the ones to cook, we are the ones in the market. We are not involved in the chain of the agriculture chain, whereby it starts from the, it's a whole chain of production. But for women, we are just the end users. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Naisera. A really important point. How do we get women, at least a balance in gender, at the center of, across the value chain of agriculture and food production, rather than just at the end use? Gordon, I'll come back to you, because digitization has been touted as perhaps providing one of the promise. How can we bridge the gender divide using digital technology?
Yeah, thank you once again. We have always made sure that some of the cultural barriers are being taken care of with digitization. And with digitization, we go as individualistic and not the family, and not the religion, and not the community. So we register you as you, not you as the family. And one thing that we have come again over and over again, that we notice that in most of the smallholder communities, most of the women or women within the communities are those that are more and more vulnerable and are not having access to even mobile phones to get the information. So what do? We sometimes appeal to friends, brother organizations here and there that look, we don't need a new phone from you, but we just need your second-hand phone, the one that you are not using again and is in your drawer or is in your house. That's the one we need to just give to the women farmers and then give them the information. And we go with one key thing, that the phone is for the woman and for the woman alone. Anytime we call to give any information and the phone is with the man, we collect the phone from you. With that idea, they always leave the phone with the women. If they really want to use it, they use it to make a call and give the phone back to the women. Although we are not the one making the call is automated, it's the system making the call. As soon as they see that a call is coming from Isoko to the phone, they quickly run away and give the phone to the woman, because they know that when we hear that is his voice, we will come back for the phone. So it's just a matter of playing a psyche and then also making sure that our target group, which are the women at that point, get the information. And this has made us increase the number of women on the platform. I mean, we increased by about 30%, which is huge to us at that time.
Gordon, thank you. That is a really interesting innovation, and perhaps could be used in many other places. Our high-level champions are listening, and maybe we can bundle this into other ways, because getting women at the center of this does take quite an effort, and such innovations very interesting. Paswell, I want to come to you and look at this idea of trust and building partnerships and how you've been able to achieve that as we bring research out into the field and as we deal with some of the real things, as you're hearing, gender issues on the ground, and particularly also around the political economy and how we engage in that to bring about the sort of market transparency that's needed to incentivize people in the sector. Over to you.
Yeah, so yes. So the flip side of what I've been saying is the idea of bundling different elements sounds great, and it is the right way to go. There's no other way, because the reductionist one approach at a time is easy in terms of coordination and what have you, but it promises very little impact. On the other hand, bundling things becomes a little more complex. The costs of coordination are a little higher, but the promised or the potential impact is also much higher. But then you have to absorb and accept the costs of coordination and bringing different partners together, which then requires trust, as you are asking me. How do you do this? I would say 3 elements. Number 1 is meaningful engagement right at time 0 of the program or of the project. Now underline that, meaningful trust at time 0. Number 2 is co-creation. So whatever is going to happen from the concept idea going forward involves input from everybody, and everybody's input is as important as another person's input. The only people whose inputs are more important than everybody else are the farmers' inputs. So everybody has to bring their ideas to the table. And so co-creation. Number 3, allow time. I mean, there's a bit of patience that must be built into the system. I say that while realizing carefully the short funding cycles. But remember, our project that we did in Mozambique and Tanzania that I've been talking about took about 5 years. So it takes about that long, 3 to 5 years, to work together patiently, doing the things I've said, in order to build that trust. Now, for farmers, the trust happens with these products when they can observe for themselves their operation. So in our project, what happened is when certain pilot villages had drought-tolerant maize and insurance, and unfortunately, or I don't know if you want to say this, fortunately, it's not, but there was a drought in 2016, and the results for those communities was that they were able to see the seed repayment that happened, and that in subsequent season gave them the impetus to invest even more in the improved seasons, because they saw the seed compensation that happened at the end of 2016. So that was basically trust building. Suppose the drug that year, you needed slightly more time to go through the whole process. So just to summarize in 10 seconds, number one, meaningful engagement times 0, co-creation, and patience and time.
Paswell, thank you for that summary. I want to pass on, go to our high-level champions, Gonzalo and Nigel. You've heard it from the experts, and just to get your reflections or any thoughts that are emerging for you from this discussion. Over to you, Gonzalo.
Well, thank you, and thank you for this very insightful conversation. And as Nigel referred to, I'm also in a learning mood. It's great to receive all of these insights. I would just refer to some aspects that were very positively surprising for me, that connect most of what we're doing in terms of the agriculture and land use thematic area as one of the most important for us, because it's also well connected to one of the priorities of the presidency, being nature-based solutions. I like this idea on how all of this is being phrased from being a human-centered need, but also then positioning this as better business, also allow us to have a better nutrition and have a better planet. The idea, I don't know whether it was Gordon or Celia mentioned, in terms of moving to a subsistence agriculture, to a business-oriented agriculture, but also positioning women in the center. I like how much of what we can do in terms of solving an injustice factor, but also acknowledging that women in the center is in many cases is the most important climate action that we can and do. In most of the time, resilient, most of the time takes me to the water topic, right? And I like not only the idea of how we can regenerate the capacity of the ecosystem in terms of its health, incorporating water, but also when you're speaking about hydroponics, when you're speaking about automatization, when speaking about urban farming, all of that can show a possibility of focusing our efforts in a much more efficient way. And I like to see how much we can collaborate on setting the conditions for that, be part of the complementarity that is needed in relation to the current farming system that must be and can be improved in so many ways. We can work on regenerative practices also around cattle and nurturing the soil and knowing how much we are sequestering soil, and at the same time developing all of the site technology mechanisms that should allow us to promote the most efficient way, but also integrate that into the urban areas. That would be my main reflection. So Nigel, if I can pass to you.
Thank you, Gonzalo. Yeah, Nigel, please.
Well, first of all, thank you, Wanjira, and all the panelists. There's a lot to take in there. I'm struck by the sort of combination of, first of all, I'm struck by the very systemic nature of the conversation. Like, there's so many, it's no silver bullet. There's sort of macro bundling, if I can borrow Paswell's phrase. There's so many different things that need to move together. It feels to me there's like a sort of human capacity upgrading through training, extension services, access to data. There's obviously a lot of technology upgrading. I mean, you talked about lots of innovation, whether it's digital or agronomy or financial services through the insurance and the bundling. And then I really like the Paswell's points about how to build trust. I mean, and the other points about engaging with and putting youth and women at on equal terms in this transition. I'm also very conscious that Africa is a very young continent. Your median age is so much younger than here. I think the median age in UK is about 40, where I think in many countries in Africa it's much closer to 20. So which means that I, as a 54-year-old, really am an old person in African terms, and I'm much closer to middle. So I think that the human issues around building trust and working together, and the way that Gordon described in response to your question about market incentives, the need to partner, and that's also about trust, right? Understanding different capabilities so that it's not it's not a competitive idea of everybody beating everybody else. It's understanding each other's strengths and playing to those strengths. Yeah, that's so what I'm left with overall is the challenge of such a complex systemic transformation of knowing how to help, right? When there are so many things that we know, so many bits that need to move. But I'm left kind of inspired by knowing that there are so many pieces of the puzzle that we do know what to do, and it's a question of how we scale them up.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Gonzalo. Thank you very much to our panelists. Indeed, there is no silver bullet, but we must keep innovating, and we've heard a lot of that today. I want to thank all of you for your insights, especially our panelists. You are extraordinary. Thank you very much. Over to you. Who is hosting? Asan. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Wanjira. Thank you, everyone, for your points and insights. I am again aware that we are a little bit behind time, so I will quickly hand over to Lindiwe. And Lindiwe's full titles, let me see if I can get these right before I am told that I've got it wrong. So Lindiwe is the director and chair of the Alliance for Research Universities in Africa Food Systems Center of Excellence at the University of Pretoria. She is also the co-chair of the Global Alliance for Climate Smart Agriculture. Lindiwe, over to you.
Thank you very much, Hassan and colleagues. I just want to say thank you to Wanjira and that excellent panel on the rich discussion where we heard from voices from the front lines. I think it's proper now that we talk about what's really in our backyard. Can we take our actions to scale? Question number one. Can we really transform the food systems and the agriculture systems that we are dealing with? And then what are those high-level commitments that we seek to have so that we can deliver on the commitment? I'm excited because we have an excellent team of panelists that is going to be unpacking the story of going to scale and transforming food and agriculture systems. We are starting 15 minutes deep into our time. I'm speaking to you from my kitchen because we've just come out of an excellent GAXA session where we were looking at chefs that can bring to the table climate smart agriculture recipes that can take things to scale. We are now talking about from the farm to the fork, how do we transform our food and agriculture systems, take things to scale, and get those high-level commitments. Without further ado, allow me to introduce my panelists. I will introduce them as they come on so that we save time. We start off in Sierra Leone, where we are inviting our panelists, who is going to be Dr. Mohamed Ajuba Jerif, who is the Director of Planning and Evaluation, Monitoring and Statistics in the division within the Ministry of Agriculture. Welcome, Dr. Sherif.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that your voice is on. We do realize that you are the kingmaker when it comes to policies in driving agriculture and transformation in Sierra Leone. And I have met you representing your government in many international fora where you speak to your experiences and the work you're doing. Can you help us understand? You as Sierra Leone are known as the champions that bounced back better after Ebola. We're just in the middle of another pandemic, the COVID-19 crisis, which has disrupted our supply chains in terms of the food. Can you share with us what disaster and climate risk management mechanisms and institutional arrangements that you have helped to put in place in order to manage and overcome the disruption of the food system? Over to you, Dr. Sharif.
Thank you very much. In Sierra Leone, we have a inbuilt institutional disaster management mechanism, and it helps us greatly during the Ebola, like you have mentioned, as well as during the COVID-19 pandemic. Before the outbreak of COVID in our country, it helps us to actually come up with preparedness plan, because we are among the countries like Guinea and Liberia. They had their index cases while Sierra Leone was just preparing. We were just sitting on a time bomb. So we have this mechanism in place. Under the Office of the National Security, there is a disaster management platform. And this platform consists of several other platforms. One is fire platform, the other one is epidemic, and the other one is flooding, the other one is earth movement, and then the other one is migration. And the most important one for this dialogue is the Food and Nutrition Security Early Warning System platform. These platforms are existing, and then in collaboration, no sooner we had the outbreak with the Sierra Leone Quick Emergency Response Plan to actually mitigate the potential shortfall that may arise during the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, the supply chain was disrupted, the food system was disrupted. But because of this mechanism was in place, we are actually able to manage the situation to a level that will reduce amount of vulnerability from urban to peri-urban to the rural areas where our small farmers are actually residing. And that is a complete food chain system in the country, from the production area to the markets and to the urban areas. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Sharif. I always find that it's always good to have the excellent policies, it's good to have the institutional arrangements, but implementation is always a challenge. Can you just help us understand, in terms of the negotiated market corridors, what are the lessons you've learned in the implementation of these interventions to build climate resilience in agri-food systems for a post-COVID-19 era?
Yeah, the Food and Nutrition Security Early Warning System actually was the main platform. It was the driver, because in that platform, we have a lot of modules. We have the agrometeorological data collection that informs us, and then we have the market information system, and we have the national cropping calendar. So with this, the Sierra Leone government decided to close down the periodic markets, and also to shut down the farm gate markets. These were the main food supply systems. But the government's emergency response was actually able to have 5 clusters. And these clusters were working groups. And one of the most important clusters was to actually maintain an intensification of the food base, productive base. This was a very good lesson that we borrowed from the Ebola. So the policy shift was actually to have intensification of local food production. And then we did not allow the farmers to work in groups, the small farmers to work in gang. So the model was that in the Ministry of Agriculture and the donor partners, we organized what is known as the COVID response mechanisms, wherein we use mechanical cultivation. We plow, we harrow, and then we supply seeds to the farmers, improved seeds, climate resilient seeds, varieties, short durations, and this actually helped us. So we are able to learn this lesson from the Ebola outbreak.
Excellent. It's amazing how a crisis has become an opportunity for regrouping, rearrangement of your institutional arrangements, but more so building resilience. And well done, Sierra Leone, for coming out better post these challenges and crises that you face. Let me turn now to someone who comes from a funding banking institution. We are lucky to have with us Mr. Martin Fregen, who is the Director of Agriculture and Agro-Industry at the African Development Bank. Before I even unpack what you are, let me congratulate you for combining both agriculture and the agro-industry, because you are really taking a food systems approach, moving away from just the farm to the processing, manufacturing, to get healthier food to your consumers. Martin, you are a geneticist and agricultural policy expert with over 25 years of experience in research and development with international institutions. You now sit at what we call our AAA funding institutions for development in agriculture. And we are looking up to you to share with us. Could you tell us what is it that the African Development Bank is currently doing to drive the agenda of transforming Africa's food and agriculture systems, but most important, to ensure food security and nutrition for Africa? Over to you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Lindiwe, and it's a pleasure to join you all on this panel. The African Development Bank launched a very ambitious program in 2016 to expand food production, increase value addition, and also create policy incentives to build globally competitive commodity value chains. Our VP, Kevin Karuki, has mentioned Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation, one of the key flagships of the Feed Africa strategy. And under this program, we have worked with seed companies, with governments, very important, and also with farmer groups to produce 65,000 metric tons of certified seeds of heat-tolerant varieties to expand wheat production into the more marginal areas, the hot and lowlands of the Awash River Valley and also the El Gezira irrigation scheme. More than 1 million farmers have benefited from those seeds, and also they have expanded by more than 100,000 hectares, wheat in these marginal areas. For example, this year, Sudan had a bumper harvest, and it's now 50% self-sufficient in wheat production just because of that program. Other programs include the special agro-processing zones. Here we try to integrate feedstock supply chains with agro-processing and logistics to add value to what we produce on the continent. Rather than export cocoa and cashew, we actually add value to it. So that's a very important part of building robust supply chains. And then, but also we need to be inclusive. So we have the affirmative action for women in agriculture and our Enable Youth that helps to de-risk lending to both women and young people, and also to create know-how in the young people. I will stop here, but these are some of the interventions.
No. Thank you so much for unpacking those examples. I mean, financing is a key issue in all this challenge of scaling up and transforming a mega sector like our food system sector. But I just want to ask you on the private sector, how best can we catalyze private sector investments so that we can get the necessary funds for adaptation, but more important, for building resilience into our food and agriculture systems?
Well, thank you, Lindiwe. As a matter of fact, a recent study showed that 80% of all food consumed on the African continent passes through the hands of small and medium enterprises. Yeah. These are thousands of small enterprises, they're private sector, that handle aggregation, handle processing, handles marketing of food. They are very, very important. In fact, they've been called the hidden middle, because we know the big companies, but these other small and medium enterprises are very, very important private sector investment. Mm-hmm. So what we are doing at the bank is twofold. One, we're trying to share risk with commercial banks who traditionally finance SMEs and also finance other bigger companies. So what the bank is doing is providing 50 to 70% guarantees to banks to lend to SMEs. That's very, very important. But more importantly is the policy environment. We all know that policies affect how private sector people invest. So trade policies, policies related to infrastructure, especially rural infrastructure, roads, wholesale markets, land tenure, key things, policies like agricultural policies, and insurance, as you have heard. So we are also working very strongly with our countries, with our regional member countries, through policy-based operations to ensure that the policies create a level playing field for these SMEs and also for bigger companies. But we have our NSO, or nursery operations, where we lend directly to companies, and they're mostly big companies. but we're beginning to realize that the SMEs also need, we need to create options for them. And we're working also now with the equity funds and also other intermediaries, commercial banks, to make sure that the SMEs are properly covered.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you so much. Talking about the work you are doing to stimulate private sector, let me move now to one of our champion private sector institutions company, Pula Insurance, which is working as a company that's radically restructuring the agriculture insurance terrain by being inclusive, not just across Africa, but into Asia. Welcome, Thomas Njeru.
Thanks a lot, Lindiwe. It's a pleasure, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much. You've worked at national level with the stakeholders that are cut across farmers into helping them develop and participate in insurance products that are climate smart. Can you walk us through that journey? What does it take?
So I'll start by just giving a brief about what we do. Our thinking is that insurance sits at the core of building resilience for agriculture sector. And our model is sort of on the product side. We've spent a lot of time building appropriate tools or solutions targeting smallholder farmers. And then on the other hand, there's also, we solve the problem of distribution, where we embed insurance in solutions such as seed, credit, fertilizer. Now, coming to the question around how insurance is the key success factors that make insurance appropriate tool for resilience. One of the things you realize is that the systemic and concentrated nature of agriculture risks makes insurance a more sustainable risk management tool. Just to think about in the African context, traditionally, Africa, the traditional risk management tool is what you call communal pooling. In Swahili, you call it kuchanga, whereby if someone in the community dies and gets sick, the community contributes to assist the family to get through the calamity. But that doesn't work in agriculture, because in the case of agriculture, it is a drought strikes, the whole village is affected and they can't even help each other. And hence, risk sharing should actually be across borders at international level. And insurance is probably one of the only tools that has the infrastructure to allow pooling of risk across borders. Of course, is the element of the uncertainty that climate change has brought to the fore, which means it's very difficult to plan in medium term and long term, irrespective of sort of the different resilience tools that you have. And in terms of uncertainty, I think it's very hard to do proper planning. I think we've seen cases where farmers have a planting calendar across the year, and we've actually seen farmers plant, but the rains don't come as expected. And insurance is a tool that helps protect farmers against some of these uncertainties and gives them a peace of mind. So they focus on farming without having to worry about what will happen.
Yep. So thank you very much. We are clear that we need insurance, and farmers are embracing the tool that you are providing. As a co-founder of Pula, I'm sure you have a lot of experiences, but also challenges as you're trying to build resilience. Can you just unpack for us, what are some of the challenges that you're facing in the sector, and what interventions do you think should be in place for you to scale up on what you're doing?
So you're very right. I always say that when it comes to agriculture insurance, the odds are stacked against you. And I joke that agriculture insurance is probably a cemetery of pilots, whereby you have a lot of pilots but which actually don't end up scaling. Now, starting with, so one of the biggest challenges that we deal with on a day-to-day basis is getting farmers to buy into the concept of insurance in Africa is a huge challenge, especially due to low trust levels. And also optimism bias. You know, farmers hope for the best, that is good rains, but they don't always prepare for the worst, that's droughts and locusts. And beyond that is sort of driving the behavior change required towards farmers adopting insurance is also tough, especially in rural and poor households where farmers are faced with many and competing demands for their finances. And this is why we adopted the concept of embedded insurance, where we package insurance with seed, fertilizer, and other things. And we have to build business case to these different value chain actors, why they should embed and include the cost of insurance in their programs. The big challenge here is getting farmers to buy into it, and how we go around it is through embedding. Now, the second one, I think we've seen it's just a big issue when it comes to agriculture insurance is related to what I talked about later. Is the current infrastructure that is set up in the insurance sector actually does not allow scaling of agriculture insurance. Let me explain a little bit what I mean by that. Now, insurance operates on the basis of diversification. Okay. Diversification means if I insure 1 million cars, for instance, in Kenya, then the chances of all those cars having an accident at the same time is very low. And to achieve diversification, you need, a statistically significant number. Now, let's come to agriculture. Now, if I insure, say, 100,000 farmers in Eastern Kenya, there's actually a possibility that all the farmers hit by a catastrophe, could be a locust invasion or a drought. Now, what it means is that within a country, it's very hard for an insurance company to build a portfolio that is diversified and stable. Most insurance laws in Africa don't allow say a Kenyan insurance companies cannot take a risk in Nigeria, cannot take a risk in Zambia, meaning that the insurance companies actually don't see agriculture as a sustainable business line, because you can't build a diversified portfolio. So that's one of the biggest challenges building. As we are not an insurance company, we are a service provider, and we work in partnership with insurers and insurers.
But Thomas, you are deep in the game, and I just want a short answer from you to say, is Africa ready for agriculture insurance being the tool for building climate change resilience?
I believe that the puzzle pieces are starting to fit together. Allow me to tackle it in 3 angles. So the demand side challenges, there is a supply side challenges, and then there is public infrastructure. Now, I know you wanted a short answer, but I'll try to be quick. Now, let's start with demand side. We've seen increased awareness for need of insurance from the different sectors in agriculture. So sort of agri-businesses that appreciate to embed insurance in their offerings, input companies, credit institutions. Then of course, climate change has also worked to an element of advantage, because it has made the stakeholders appreciate the need for insurance in the agri sector. There's need to de-risk insurance. On the supply side, I think we've seen the last couple of probably years whereby a lot of solutions are being developed, sort of from weather index, yield index, and DVI, all new concepts. If you look at them, most of them are probably less than 2 deep. And more so increased investment and interest in agriculture sector, both from existing actors, that's the insurance and insurance companies, but then also from new actors. Like 10 years ago, Pula didn't exist, but here we are, 3.5 million farmers, and in 13 countries. Thank you very much. And lastly, on the public infrastructure side, I think we've seen regulators, government, and other public institutions that are increasingly seeing the need for agriculture insurance. For instance, Kenya is actually in advanced stages of developing what they're calling an agriculture insurance policy. and many other countries are following suit. So that builds a public infrastructure, an environment that helps to succeed. So yes, Africa is ready for agriculture insurance, despite all the many challenges.
That's the answer I was waiting for. Africa is ready to embrace agriculture insurance as a tool for climate change resilience building. Thank you so much, and congratulations, Pula, and well done for being a co-founder for such a great initiative. One of the big things that we celebrated at COP22 was the creation of the AAAI standing for Adaptation of Africa Agriculture Initiative. I'm happy to invite Ma'am Abia Lemsefa, who is the Director General for the AAA initiative. She has held senior positions in the ministries and state bodies and is now sitting as our Director General for this exciting initiative. Welcome on board, Ms. Lemsefa.
Thank you. Thank you. Very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. AAAI is an exciting and excellent initiative that we launched and celebrated. And we are keen to catch up with you as we prepare for the next big COP. Where are you? What are the challenges? And we've heard from the African Development Bank on their initiatives and what they are doing, and other speakers on this transformation agenda of our agriculture. What can you point to as your achievements to date in this journey? Over to you, Madame Lemsefa.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, alors, I know that I have to be very, very quick and very tight in my answer. So just very briefly, well, as you mentioned, the AAA initiative was launched in the COP22, which has the specificity to be a COP held in the land of Africa. And it was important for us to launch something for Africa from Africa. And as you know, the agriculture stake, it's huge in Africa. It's like on the top of the priorities regarding the percentage of the GDP, regarding the social impact, and of course regarding the environmental impact. So from the COP22 till now, we have created a foundation that is now holding the initiative, and the African Bank of Development, for example, is member of the board of this foundation, and we have a lot of other members. We are also we have been designated by the African Union as a real tool for the continent for the adaptation of the agriculture. And you know, and we have a lot of projects running, some have been achieved. And if I have to summarize our approach in a very few words, is that we have the ambition, and this is what we are trying to do, to build the bridge between the African agriculture and the climate ecosystem. I mean,
yeah, but talking about that bridge, I'm sorry to just intercept you.
Please do.
You're talking about building that bridge, and I'm very keen for you to unpack for us the work that you're doing in helping countries in their NDCs to embed actions on agriculture. How are you bringing that to bear?
It's your question is really relevant, because before our action, there have been a very big study that have been done by the FAO, who said that 80% of the projects that the African countries have submitted in their NDCs were agriculture projects. It is just to tell you how agriculture is really, for the African continent, is in the center of any development policy, of any climate change policy, or any resilience policy. And on the NDCs, what we are bringing to the countries now is first a science-based approach, is that we to give our projects and to bring to the countries something very concrete on the strategic and national level when we talk to governments. And of course, you know that it is the governments that submit the NDCs every year or every moment. It has to be done. We try to bring the best practices. We try to bring really that science-based approach, and also we try to bring at the same time that specific project engineering that will make countries able to take projects from their NDCs and to make them bankable, and to transform from the policy and from the wishes till to the ground.
Talking about bankable projects, you're really speaking now about enabling private sector, including our farmers, to scale up their efforts in the transformation agenda. What specific interventions? You've spoken about science-led approaches. What about on the private sector side? What are the key elements that will enable this transformation to happen using private sector?
For me, there are like two dimensions. To build the better PPP, private public partnership. The public is on the high level dimension. The public is bringing the vision and the let's say the road that the governments, for example, want for their countries, and the private sector is on the ground. So the private sector has to work, and this is what we are trying to do, has to work on the changement of mentalities, has to work. And in the African continent, and this is what we choose the adaptation field, is that adapting to climate change, it's not a choice, it's not like a luxury, it's not like something that people are going to do, you need to go to have image. No, it's a difficulty that they are facing every day. For example, when farmers are facing water scarcity, for example, I mean, they are facing climate change every day. So they are obliged to participate and to be involved, because otherwise their way to do the agriculture and their income and the yield from the land will simply disappear.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Lemsefa, for just unpacking what AAAI is about and the magnificent steps you have taken to make sure that we bridge the gap and take to scale the transformation agenda. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So let me just move over to our champions and give an opportunity to both Nigel and Gonzalo for additional questions, areas they would like to amplify, and help us contextualize the messages they want to take out of this panel.
Well, first, let me thank you, Lindy, again for such a brilliant panel that is giving us so much knowledge. Hopefully that we will be able to therefore project into concrete action for not only the African continent, the agricultural system, the resilience of so many livelihoods and the ecosystem, but also as learnings that we should be trying to implement in other regions as well. We want to just finish with some very final thoughts and messages. You all know we are in a race against time, against ourselves in so many ways. We need to build a 1.5-degree world where all thrive in the face of climate risk, uncertainty, and change. So please join us in this journey. We are also here to invite you. We have a fantastic set of global dialogues happening under the Race to Zero in November, starting from November 9th to the 19th. There will be a whole day on agriculture on the 17th of November, and over 30 dialogues with very strong resilience content. You can all find information on how to register at the UNFCCC Race to Zero Dialogue website, but please don't hesitate on reaching us and our teams. We need to see how much of this brings participation from the African continent, from the agri sector worldwide, but also how much of this is on the serve of all of the parties and non-member states at the African continent. Building resilience also means halting climate change to reduce its impact on the planet, and especially on the poor and most vulnerable who are not caused it. So please also join us on our Race to Zero campaign that aims to reach net zero emissions in the 40s. So having said that, I'll hand it to Nigel to close with our remarks.
Thank you. Over to you, Nigel.
Thank you, Gonzalo. Thank you, Lindiwe. Let me just make a couple of reflections on the last panel, and then I think we were going to have Nicholas Kay from the UK government team making some closing remarks, but I think we've lost him. So so you can ask me to. Oh, he's back. He's back. Okay, I'm just following on.
I'm here, Nigel. Never fear.
Hi, Nick. Great to see you. Anastasia told me we'd lost you. I'm glad you're back. So just a few comments and actually one question. It's maybe for Lindiwe and maybe Thomas. I mean, I love the way you framed this, Lindiwe, about the challenges and the opportunities for scale. And I take away, I mean, 4 highlights amongst many. One is the sort of institutional lessons and sort of bundling ideas. I love the Mohammed's point about learning from the Ebola crisis, and then Martin's idea that it's related to that of special agricultural zones, and ensuring that it's not just about resilient agriculture but resilient development, so making sure there's more added value locally. I thought also the point about the role of SMEs is really important. In the Race to Zero, we've also recognized that I think something like 90% of the world's businesses are SMEs. So it's great to see work done to bring them in. I love Thomas's point about agricultural insurance being a cemetery of pilots. And Lindiwe, thank you for pushing him to tell us that Africa is ready. I had a question. What percentage of African smallholder farmers currently have insurance of some form? I mean, do we have any idea? Is it 1%, 5%, 20%? Any idea, anyone?
Thomas, are you there? That must be your bread and butter statistics. I wouldn't think it's high, so you're quite close on the 1% or less, but let's hear if Thomas comes on board, he can direct us.
Thomas seems to have dropped off.
Well, let me just suggest that putting a high number on that should be one of our collective goals for, for 2030, of course, but let's work back to maybe 100% by 2030, and maybe, I don't know, a big goal for 2025, and what could we do if we collectively push in the next 12 months? And then last point, I love Abier's point about making sure that NDCs don't just reflect best practice, science-based best practice, but that they are turned into investable plans. I mean, that seems to me that's often a bridge that we need to come. And then just maybe I'll just make just some final thoughts on the session overall. I mean, again, I'll just echo Gonzalo's points. I want to thank everybody. There's a lot to take in here. We know that we're literally at a unique time in world's history, that this COVID period will be a pivot point, and it's a choice for governments individually and collectively that will determine the shape of the future economy and of our society and our communities, and that the 10 to $20 trillion of public capital that's being injected into the economy has the power to either lock the world into many more years of pollution and inequality, or to set us on course to halve greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, and to build resilience into those individual investments and into our societies. Gonzalo and I are very clear what outcome we prefer. So let's work together to make sure we don't miss the opportunity and of the combination of the 2 COPs next year, the Food Systems Summit, and of course UK G7 and G20 presidencies. Final message I just want to emphasize that as champions, we're very conscious that we've got to focus on helping to deliver a successful COP26 outcome. But we're also conscious that the Marrakesh Partnership, which was born at COP22 in Africa, has an African name, are very committed to leaving a legacy beyond COP26, so that the African appointed presidency and the African appointed champion for COP27, who I will have the pleasure of working with for a year, inherits an infrastructure. Gonzalo and I are looking forward to
panelists on this dialogue.
Can we please mute if you are not speaking? Please go on mute.
So we want to make sure that resilience in the food and agricultural system is a high priority in our work going forward. As we said in the beginning, we're looking forward to launching a campaign for resilience that balances the race to zero. And we want to work hard to build a team supporting the Marrakesh Partnership work that's based in Africa, to work with many of you to deliver a better future for Africa and for the planet. So with that, I'd like to thank you all, and thank you to the many partners for putting this on. And thank you, Hassan, thank you, Lindiwe and Wanjira, for your great work in coordinating. And let me hand back. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel, and thank you, Gonzalo, for making us come on board on this journey. But as you've mentioned, you want COP26 to be a success. And we have with us in the room Stain Inafo, who is the newly appointed Global Center on Adaptation Regional Advisor for Africa. Could you please unpack for us the road that we are on towards COP26? What should we expect and what should we be doing in addition to what the champions have already done for us today? Over to you, Saini.
Thank you, Professor. Indeed, I have the pleasure of wearing several hats here. You talked about COP26. Will be the African spokesperson for COP26. I'm the AI coordinator. I see my good friend and sister Abir. I also am the Secretary General of the AAA, and I've just been appointed also as the senior advisor to the GCA CEO for Africa. And indeed, we're going to be doing a lot of work. As I speak right now, GCA and the AFDB are finalizing a very focused work program on the topic at stand today, on food security, on agriculture. We all know how much agriculture is important for the continent. It's 30 to 40, sometimes 50% of GDP, 70% of the labor force. But unfortunately, when you look at commercial lending, for instance, not even 5% of commercial lending goes to the agriculture sector. That's one of the huge paradox on this continent. Our banks and financial system are not putting the money into agriculture. So for GCA as a global solution broker, which has a number of intervention areas for food security is actually the main area of intervention, and all of the work of GCA in Africa are actually at global level will be focused on food security on 4 specific tracks, and this is 4 tracks for the next few months. The first is on sustainable and resilient Africa. This is private sector, but at the same time working throughout across the value chain. Second, improving access to climate-informed digital advisory services. We'll have a pilot on that, and we'll also be working on financial innovation. All of that work program is going to be done very closely with the AAA, who is actually the initiative on the continent, which has the mandate by heads of state and ministers of agriculture to sort of push that work. So we'll work very closely with the AAA, with Abir's team on the good work. We'll also be working on climate finance, on mobilizing resources. I heard that. We'll work on helping countries and stakeholders to mobilize finance to prepare projects, whether through the Green Climate Fund or other means. So definitely we're here to advance the work on some of those fronts. And again, food security in agriculture will be the priority of the center in Africa, working with partners.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much. It's good to see that the road is on, the roadmap is there, and you are in the driving seat to make things happen. Thank you for that overview. Colleagues, allow me now to give the floor to Sir Nicholas Kay, the UK Regional Ambassador for Sub-Saharan Africa, who is going to provide his brief reflections and the closing remarks, because we have exactly 3 minutes left. Nick, you're in the deep end. First week in this new role, you are now driving right into this dialogue. Tell us how you're going to get us to the finish line. Over to you.
Well, thank you very much indeed. No pressure, obviously. But a little bit of time pressure, clearly. Well, let me just say, I am so enormously grateful that I've had this opportunity for my first external event as the regional ambassador for COP26 for Africa from the presidency, because I've learned so much, and it's so refreshing to have the high quality variety of speakers that you've had today. And thank you, Hassan, for organizing it, Wanjira and Lindy, excellent moderators, and all the panelists. I've learned so much, and I know a little bit about the impacts of Africa. I was ambassador in DRC for the UK and Sudan and UNSRSG in Somalia. So I've seen firsthand the impacts of climate change and also the impacts on security. And I know the centrality of agriculture, but that has come across enormously clearly today in everything you've said. The centrality of agriculture for adaptation and resilience, and also the importance of the public-private partnerships and getting involved, particularly with innovative financing models. Sure, it's a presentation I thought was really, really rich, food for thought. As COP26 presidency, what I would like to say is essentially 2 things. That the spirit with which we are conducting this presidency is one of intense international collaboration. I mean, this is absolutely a collective and shared endeavor. And our focus is to help enable a resilient green recovery for all the reasons that we know. When it comes to Africa, even in the 3 days I've been doing this job, the one thing I have heard is that adaptation and resilience need to be given higher priority than they have been given so far. And I'm absolutely determined that we should do that. The UK presidency has absolutely established adaptation and resilience, converting fine words into action. The call for action was there, but we want to showcase really practical projects and achievements in this field, and a number of those have been mentioned today. So we want to do that. We also want to improve protection from the impacts of climate-related extreme weather events, and we heard it obviously also from Sierra Leone how well they've done in terms of responding to disaster crises such as Ebola. And there's a lot that we need to learn and share the best practice from. And then finally, increasing money. It's all about money. The availability, there is money around, but obviously sometimes its availability, the efficiency and accessibility of funding and finance is a problem. I've heard that also clearly, and I really welcome the role of the African Development Bank and others in working on this. And as COP presidency, we really do want to come to COP26 in a year's time with some really tangible, clear progress on how we can improve access to finance and funding, particularly for adaptation and resilience. So those are just some of our COP presidency thoughts. As I say, it's a huge collective effort. We're all in this together. And at the end of COP26, we absolutely have the pleasure of passing the baton to an African leader for COP27. And it's great to meet the spokesperson virtually, your last speaker, who's just been appointed for COP26, and Nigel is the champion who will work alongside an African champion when appointed. But that's a year's hence. Between now and then, there is so much that we absolutely need to do. And as one of your last speakers said, this isn't a luxury, this isn't an option. This is stuff we have to do. And I can say that as the UK presidency of COP26, we're deeply committed to making this work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sir Nicholas K, for that. We all have to make it work and no one will be left behind. Thank you, Africa. Thank you to the conveners. Thank you to the champions. But there is someone who's been in my inbox every day. Anastasia, you're a star. Thank you very much. Colleagues, this is not the last of the dialogues. 30 October, we are moving to Latin America. Join us on this journey, Race to Zero campaign. We are all in it together. We have no choice. Thank you for our participants, 76 online now, in and out. Thank you to everybody who's made this a success. Meet you on the 30th of October. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lindy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you all. Bye.